Hi book lovers, welcome back to my channel. It is book haul time. I'm really excited to share with you all the books that I got, received, and bought for myself in August 2019. There are quite a lot of them. This is just a sneak peek. So I won't go too much in depth with each and every one of these books. I'll stop and talk about the ones that I loved. I may have already talked about them in my August wrap up, so if you haven't seen that video, go check it out. I'll start off with some finished copies that I received from publishers and authors. First up is a historical romance, and that is Brazen and the Beast by Sarah MacLean. It has a really nice step back. So this one I gave 3 stars. I think I talked about it in my July wrap up. But yeah, this one I didn't love. This one I struggled with. Didn't really like the hero very much. I really wish I enjoyed the series more. Like, I love Sarah MacLean's other series, like her Rules of Scoundrel series and her Scandal and Scoundrel series, but this series just doesn't seem to be working for me. I do have high expectations though for the next book in this series. I forgot what it's called, but it's like a second chance romance almost. The hero in that third book thinks that his heroine has been dead for years, so it'll be interesting to see how he finds out that she is actually very much alive. I'm just gonna continue on with more historical romances, and the next one is Tessa Dare, The Wallflower Wager. I adored this one. I talk about it in my August wrap up. It was just so sweet, adorable, romantic. If you love animals in your romances, this is one to check out. There's like a goat, a dog, a cursing parrot. The heroine loves to take in strays, and her growly neighbor is not a fan of that. I keep saying cute and adorable, but really there's like no other good words to describe this book. It's just like an awe kind of book. So if you love a book that will make you smile and laugh and giggle, this one is perfect. Next up is Kerrigan Byrne, How to Love a Duke in 10 Days. I've talked about this one a bunch of times already, but I mean, I'll say it again, I really enjoy this one. I thought it was a fantastic start to a new series, historical romance. The heroine is being blackmailed and pretty much bankrupt, so she has to try to get help from a duke. So they kind of set up a nice deal with each other. I love Kerrigan Byrne. Her writing is fantastic. I love her darker, tortured alpha heroes. This one is definitely dark and tortured, but not as much as like Kerrigan Byrne's Victorian Rebel series. It's not quite that dark, but definitely more intense than, say, your regular historical romance. Next up is How to Catch a Wicked Viscount by Amy Rose Bennett. Did you know that it's pronounced Viscount and not Viscount? I only figured this out like last year, I think, from some Twitter post. It blew my mind, honestly. I had to double check on like dictionary.com and Google. But yeah, it's pronounced Viscount. I haven't read this one yet. It is a historical romance. The heroine is like a nerd, bookish, and the hero is of course a rake. This is kind of a matchmaker book where the hero has to help the heroine get a husband, and of course ends up falling for her himself. I've heard good reviews for this one. This is a new to me author, but I always love, you know, a romance where a playboy hero gets knocked down on his feet by the heroine. Next up is a contemporary romance that is Handle with Care by Helena Hunting. This one I haven't read just yet. I do enjoy Helena Hunting's books. They're not amazing to me, but I have enjoyed a couple of her books, so I'm not in like the biggest hurry to read this one. In this one, the hero becomes a CEO of his family's company, and then the heroine is hired to clean up his image. Next up is The Aussie Next Door by Stephanie London. As you can tell from the title, the heroine moves to Australia and falls for her Australian neighbor. I really enjoy these stories, like falling for your neighbor, falling for the guy who just moved in across the apartment from yours. It says it's a rom-com and that there's a really big tight-knit family and some dogs, so it sounds very wholesome. I haven't read this one yet either, but I'm looking forward to it. This next one is a book that I got for an Instagram spotlight tour, and that is Every Last Breath by Gina Rushton. This one is romantic suspense, also second chance romance. I don't read romantic suspense too often, although I have read a few that I really loved. And of course I love that this is a second chance romance. I am trying to read, you know, more debut authors, and this one is on my list. Moving on from the finished copies of mass market paperbacks, so next is Say You Still Love Me by Kay Tucker. This is the finished copy. I was so happy when the publisher sent this to me because I wanted to give away my ARC. Plus, I was really in love with this gorgeous spine. This is one of my absolute favorites of the year. It's a second chance romance. It's got all the summer camp vibes. It's just a really feel-good, heartwarming second chance romance. Highly recommend it. Next up is another new favorite of the year, and that is Bringing Down the Duke by Evie Dunmore. If you follow me on Instagram, then you know that I've been talking about this one a lot. It is such a good historical romance. I was so surprised by how much I love this one. It's a debut author. It's about politics, feminism, falling for a duke. Everything about this one worked so well for me. I love, you know, a cold, austere, like forbidding kind of hero who warms up and becomes such a teddy bear when it comes to the heroine. I mean, Montgomery doesn't become a teddy bear, but it's as close as he can get to one. Annabelle herself is a really headstrong, fantastic heroine. There's the perfect amount of feminism and politics to really bring you deep into this feminist era, while at the same time not being too preachy or hitting your head over with it. I just love this romance. It's slow burn. The writing is fantastic. Definitely amazed by this debut author, and I'm so looking forward to her next book. Next up is a book that I keep on saying that I'll read, but I still haven't gotten to it yet, and that is Well Met by Jen DeLuca. This is the pretty finished copy. I love the little details to it. It's a rom-com, Renaissance fair, all that good stuff. I'll get to it eventually. Next is a book that I was so excited to receive, really wasn't expecting it, and that is Broken Night by L.J. Shen. You might already know that I talk all about this one in one of my previous videos. If you like new adult, if you like mature young adult, set in high school, really angsty, this book and the series is perfect for you. Also, I just really love this paperback. Next up, I got The Reckless Oath We Made by Bryn Greenwood. I've heard really amazing things about this author, especially with her really famous release, All the Ugly and Wonderful Things. I got this book of the month copy just because I heard so many good things about it, and I heard about the controversy over it, so it got me intrigued. So in this one, we get a really tough heroine who lives in Kansas. She has a lot of problems to deal with, especially with her family and her boss, and some kidnapping happens, and so she has to turn to Gentry, who is shy and autistic and believes that he is the heroine's knight. It sounds like a very interesting, complicated, little dark kind of love story. I haven't read it yet, but I'm not sure I would call this a romance. Like, I don't think her other book was a romance either, even though there was a love story in it. Let me know what you think of this author if you read her. I think if I were to read her first, I would start with this one. Next is J.R. Ward, Blood Truth. I was really happy to get this. I didn't love the book. It was okay. Definitely not one of J.R. Ward's best, but I mean, it was okay. I liked being back in the BDV world. This is part of the Black Dagger Legacy series, about one of the program trainers, but it's nice that we get glimpses of the original Black Dagger Brotherhood boys like V and Butch. Next up is another one of my favorites. August had so many good releases, so many good reads for me, and that is Things You Save in a Fire by Catherine Center. This was my first book by her. Fell so much in love with her writing. I actually had to get like her previous release because of this one, which I'll talk about later. In this one, the heroine is a female firefighter, which is not that common, so she has her work cut out for her when she moves to a new firehouse in Boston. She ends up falling for her fellow newbie, who also joins the firehouse at the same time. I love the story so much. It's not really a romance. It has, you know, the romance in it, but it's more along the lines of fiction. I was just so surprised by how much I loved this book. The heroine is fantastic. I admired and loved her. So whether or not you read romance, definitely read this one. Next up is book 49 in the In Death series by J.D. Robb, and that is Vendetta in Death. I love the series so much, but there's no way I'm even near caught up with the series. 49 books. I'm only on book 8, but I love Eve and Rourke so much. One of my favorite couples, power couple for sure. Honestly, I probably could jump into this one and not be that confused. Each book is, you know, a new murder mystery. The series is like sci-fi, mystery, romance, all that good stuff, blends really well together. And of course, J.D. Robb is a fantastic writer. She is Nora Roberts after all. If you haven't read the series yet, definitely give Naked in Death a try, the first book in the series. It's so good. I'm not a mystery fan at all. I don't read mysteries, but I love the series. Next up is an author that I still need to read. She's been on my TBR for years, and that is Dark Illusions by Christine Feehan. This is paranormal romance. I think part of her Carpathian series. This one is all about life mates and bonds, which I love in paranormal romances. I actually won this next one from the author Sierra Simone, and I won Feast of Sparks. This is book 2 in her Thornhill series. I just checked, it's Thornchapel, really close. I haven't read the first book yet, A Lesson in Thorns, but I've heard amazing things about it. Sierra Simone is a fantastic writer. I really enjoy her books. She's an amazing erotic romance author. Besides that, I really honestly don't know what the series is about. But I mean, I have the first book and now I have this one, so I'll eventually read it. Next up, I got a series from a PR company, and that is the White Collar Brothers series by Piper Rain. This is a new to me author, but I've heard really good things from people on Instagram about her. These are all 3 books. First one is Office Romance, Boss Assistant, Enemies to Lovers, and then an accidental marriage romance in the third one. I love the sound of these, especially the accidental marriage one. I haven't read a good one like this in a long time. Let me know if you read her before. She's an indie author, totally new to me. I also went to Book Off recently, found 3 books that I was really happy to find. The first one is Sarah McLean, of course. The first book in her Rules of Scoundrel series. I've been looking for this one for a little while just because I wanted to complete my series collection. There are 4 books and I finally have all 4. Like I said, this is the first book in the series, and this was actually the book that got me really into historical romance. Next up is a Hades and Persephone retelling romance. I've had this one on my TBR ever since like last year, I think. I asked for Hades Persephone retelling recommendations. I have a whole like story highlight on my Instagram if you want to check out those recommendations, and that is Goddess of Spring by PC Cast. This one's a pretty old book. I think it released in 2004. In this one, the heroine owns a bakery shop, and somehow she ends up making a deal with Demeter, Persephone's mother, that Demeter will breathe life back into her bakery if the heroine changes places with Persephone. So the heroine becomes Persephone basically and ends up falling for Hades. I'm obsessed with all things Hades and Persephone. It's one of my favorite retellings ever. I've actually read one of PC Cast's fantasy romances with a centaur heroine. I don't remember the title, but I like that one. It's pretty good, really interesting, really different from anything that I've ever read. So I'm excited for this one. I've also read her young adult series, House of Night, a long time ago. Also, look at this cover. Like, this blur is very strategically placed. And the last one I got from Book Off is Catherine Center, of course. I was so happy that I found this one. It was only like $6 or $7, so total steal. I've heard amazing things about this one. This is her previous release, the one right before Things She Saved in a Fire, which is why like the covers are pretty similar to each other. I think they're gorgeous. The heroine in this one has an almost perfect life, but it's all taken away from her after some accident. She has a fiance, but I think she ends up falling for her physical therapist. I'm really looking forward to this one. I love her writing because of Things You Save in a Fire. So excited to read this one. This next one I actually got during a trade. It's a young adult book, but it's by a beloved author, and that is Muse of Nightmares by Laini Taylor. I freaking loved Laini Taylor as like a high schooler. Her Daughter of Smoke and Bone series is still one of my favorite fantasy romance series. It's kind of mature YA, I would say, that series. I don't know about the series, I haven't started it yet, but I do own the first book in the series, so I thought I might as well get the second one. Moving on to the arcs that I got, I have some really good ones I'm excited to share. First up is Nalini freaking Sing Sing, her upcoming thriller, Madness in Sunshine. I am so happy to get this one. I don't read thrillers, but it's Nalini Singh, so I'm definitely reading this one. It's set in New Zealand, people are vanishing. Really intrigued by this one. Like I said, I'll read anything and everything by Nalini Singh. Really excited that she is doing her very first thriller. I'm also really into New Zealand. Recently I read The Best Thing by Mariana Zapata. The hero in that one is a New Zealander, a rugby player. And then I watched Falling in Love on Netflix. It's a rom-com set in New Zealand about fixing up an abandoned inn. That one was so cute. So yeah, really into New Zealand right now. Next one is an anthology, all contemporary romances. I actually got this just for the cover. It is giving me all the fall vibes, which I love. Pumpkins, baked goods, all that good stuff. So excited for fall. Another book that I got from Kensington is Marie Force, her book Deceived by Desire. This is a historical romance set in America, Rhode Island. I don't come across that too often, you know, they're all set in London and England, so I'm excited for this one. This is the second book in her very first historical romance series. The hero is a wealthy industrialist and he ends up falling for his housekeeper. So a clash of the classes historical romance. Next up is a cowboy romance, well technically rancher romance, but they're kind of both the same to me, and that one is Jennifer Ryan and her book Restless Rancher. The hero hires a new accountant to help rebuild his life and end up falling for her. I don't think I've ever encountered an accountant heroine in like any of the romances that I've ever read, so that was a surprise, pleasant surprise seeing that in the blurb. Jennifer Ryan writes a ton of cowboy, western, rancher romances. I haven't read any of them, but this one does sound interesting. Next up is a young adult book. I've surprisingly been getting a lot more young adult books in the last month than I have in years pretty much. I mean, it's only like 3 books, but I mean that's more than 0. And this one is The Fountains of Silence by Ruta Sepetys. I think I loved her book Between Shades of Grey back when I was a teen. Such a good World War II YA novel. This one is also another historical fiction book set in like mid-1900s Spain when it was under a fascist dictatorship. So if you love historical fiction, historical YA, definitely keep an eye out for this one. Back to my romances is Jasmine Guillory's Royal Holiday. This one is a Christmas romance. Kind of sort of royal romance, but not really. It's got mature characters. I still haven't read her books yet. I tried to read her first book, but I wasn't really a fan of the writing, so I put it down and never, you know, picked it back up. So that's also why I've been hesitant to read all her other books. But if you're a fan of her books, this might be for you. This next one was on my TBR last month, didn't get to it, and that is No Judgments by Meg Cabot. If you know me, then you know that Meg Cabot got me started reading, got me into romance, young adult. So I'm really excited that she's still writing, that she's writing adult romances. This one's like a little island romance. Sounds super cute. Love the cover. Last is a book that I was so excited to get, and that is Down Too Deep by J. Daniels. This is book 4 in the Dirty Deed series. Such a good series. It's angsty, it's sexy. J. Daniels is really good at writing alpha heroes. I'm really excited about this one. The hero Nate has been in the series since book 1, so I've been anticipating his story. I love that both the main characters in this book are single parents. I love the last book in the series, Bad for You. I mean, I enjoyed all of the books in the series, but Bad for You was fantastic. One of my favorites from last year, so I'm definitely looking forward to this one. And that is it for my big old book haul for August 2019. Let me know if you've read any of these books, any of these authors, if you're looking forward to reading any of these. As always, I'll leave a link to all of these books that I mentioned in the description below. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!